Greetings, everyone. Ryan Lombardi here. Glad to be with you for Real Talk with Ryan today. I am thrilled to be joined today by a senior in Cal's, Ashleigh Gundy, class of 2022, soon to be graduating, who's joining me for this conversation. Ashleigh, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I know this is a super busy time of the year. We're just near the end of classes. You're a student athlete. Your season's nearing the finality of the season, so super busy. I know you've got a lot going on, but your time is valuable and is greatly appreciated.
Thank you. No, I appreciate you having me today. I'm really excited to start talking about, my life on campus and, sports, academics, everything Cornell related.
Awesome. I know you're proud. I mean, seniors now, you have to be getting a little reflective, right? You're almost there. You're the last class at Cornell that had a full year that wasn't interrupted by COVID in some way, shape, or form, right? Your freshman year. So Ashleigh, to get us started here, why don't you just tell our viewers today a little bit more about yourself?
So my interests here are fitness, aside from being on the Cornell women's lacrosse team, documentaries, creating those, and then being involved in other student-led organizations, including WACA, and then also Black Gen Capital. I would say for fitness, again, separate from playing lacrosse, I've always had a huge passion for it. And that led me to create a fitness page on Instagram and start personal training. Over a year ago, I had more time in the summer during COVID. I made a short documentary my freshman year for a school project. And then summer of 2020, I decided to make one after the death of George Floyd. And it was called Where Do We Go From Here? I got to interview a lot of students and student athletes here at Cornell, but also other universities like Brown, Michigan, George Washington. And it was also featured by USA Lacrosse Magazine and Cornell Sports. And other than, there's a lot I could talk about the documentary, but the two organizations that I'm in, it keeps me even busier here at Cornell, along with academics and athletics. So with WACA, it's a student-led organization seeking to foster community for varsity athletes of color, and specifically for women. I'm also the chairwoman of our Black Student Athletic Committee, and this is stems from WACA, so they're kind of the same thing. WACA's the head of it. And then with Black Gen, I joined this group my junior year, and it's Cornell's first underrepresented minority-owned investment fund. And that's where I got to learn about everything finance, really. So yeah, it's taken a good amount of my time. And I've gotten to just kind of stay involved in a lot of things on campus. That's a little about me. And then my major is communications and my minor is business.
Major in communications, minor in business. Ashleigh, I'm not quite sure how you have time to do all of these things, be a student athlete, be excelling in the classroom. So obviously you've got it figured out. We can all take some lessons from you. Tell us about this fitness channel.
Yeah, so I made this page a few years ago. And I think for me, there's always been kind of a personal story in the background. So I lost 30 pounds 5 years ago, a while ago. And I remember when I wanted to lose this weight, I wanted to do it in a way where hey, I'm maintaining my body weight and I'm not gaining anything or losing anything drastically. I really wanted this to be a lifestyle change for me. I'm also a huge foodie, so it's gonna rise.
I'm with you there. Okay.
So yeah, for me, but I was also always athletic. So the hard thing for me isn't being more active. It was my portion size with food. So then I decided, hey, I love fitness. I love food. I love anything health, fitness, mind, body, soul, any advice to give on my transformation. It's kind of just come a page anybody, young, old. Okay. I've done workouts with lacrosse girls from my high school at Shipley. I've done workouts with my brother for kids. And then I've also done just workouts on my own.
Very good. Very good. Is there one tip you would share with our viewers? It's probably hard for me to ask you to boil it down to one, but is there one that's most important?
Yeah, I'd say it's 80% what you eat and 20% what you do. So a lot of people think we just work out and go to the gym all the time. And it's an 80-20 rule. People have probably heard of it, but you can see it having real life benefits, especially to whatever your health plan is. I don't like saying diet, especially as an athlete, because again, I love to eat, so I'm not gonna deprive myself. But when I pick different foods and kind of cut my portion sizes and replace certain foods with others or other vegetables, I found it tasted even better and it made me feel better.
Well, your interest in documentaries, you referenced one actually that you made a while ago, which I wasn't aware of, but then you referenced the Where Do We Go From Here documentary that you made as you said, in I think the summer, fall of 2020, after George Floyd was murdered. And I had the chance to watch that documentary, and it was really well done. I commend you on your efforts. And you had a Harvard professor on there. You had, like you said, interviewed for students and student athletes from a number of institutions, and really focused on the Black student experience, the Black student athlete experience, young Black individuals in the United States, and what that has been like. And so, tell me more about that journey and why you thought it was so important to make this documentary and to bring these voices and amplify these voices that you did in the 56 minutes that the documentary was.
Yeah, no. So I'd say to start, like, at first I had time on my hands because it was like COVID was going on. So I'm like, I really want to do something, and I want it to have an impact on people and on everybody. While like, again, it's a lot, this is about the Black experience. My editors were white, and one of them went to my high school at Shipley, Max Brandt, and the other one, Jillian Harrell, goes here at Cornell, and I met her in one of my writing classes, and she's like really interested in documentaries. And so other than just the creation of it, I wanted it to be like, from anybody looking in on this, like, I think what you would take away from the whole thing is like, you have to continue educating yourself, no matter what color you are. Just because you're Black, you don't know every single thing. And just because you're white, it doesn't mean that, and you have Black friends, let's say, that you still like know every single thing, or you watch the news. Like with this documentary, I wanted it to be very educational. And that's why I had Professor Khalil Muhammad speaking and kind of narrating and really providing, like, making it very credible. It's a huge thank you to him, because I feel like even when I was listening to him talk, like, I'm learning things. And he kind of like pieced it together perfectly. So it was like, hey, you're hearing from the students like firsthand, and then now you're hearing from somebody who's like an expert in history, race, and public policy. Again, he just has like a lot of great perspective to bring to it. And so I thought that would make it so people don't just feel like, hey, I'm listening to this person's experiences, maybe I can't connect, maybe I can. I'm actually listening and I'm learning something. It's almost like a history class. So I wanted it to be like multidimensional in that aspect. A lot of like people have shared positive experiences, negative experiences, but I think the biggest thing is like everybody has a story to tell. That's another thing I realize. And it's the most important that people really come out of their comfort zones to like actively listen to what they're saying, listen to their stories, and really try and like educate themselves on the topics, because it can be uncomfortable, but I think staying in that comfort, like there's no room for growth and for like learning.
Ashleigh, thank you. And I thank you again for making this. I thought you did so well with this documentary on a number of fronts that I would just reflect on myself. I find tremendous value in hearing students speak about their lived experience, and hearing certainly the folks that you had interviewed, some of whom I knew and I know very well, actually, and some of whom I didn't, because they're students at other universities, and the combination of having an esteemed professor in there as well. Adding that, I tend to think, and you use the word, I think, humanity in there at one point just now when you were explaining. I feel like in so many cases, white Americans, people who look like me, if they would take the time to sit and listen to a lived experience, even the stories that you highlighted in that, let alone the relationships I get to have with students on this campus, you can't help but think about the lens that you look at life, look or experience the world differently than some other people do, and how that feels to them, and how that should make you reflect on what your role is in continuing in answering the where do we go from here, and continuing to make improvement. So I thought you did that really, really well. And so tell us, in segueing, tell us about WACA, Women of Color in Athletics.
Yeah, so I'd love to. So WACA, it's a student-led organization seeking to foster community for varsity athletes of color at Cornell. I really love it because as a woman of color on a team that's predominantly white, and being the only person who is Black out of 42 other women who are white, I'd say to have a space, a network, and a community really where you feel like you're comfortable enough to go and, talk to these people, and you can even have mentors or be a mentor for somebody else. Like, I think for me, like not coming in as a freshman in WACA, I feel like being more of a mentor to other people. And it's also just a place where, we can come together and kind of like de-stress, and we have different activities that we do. That Jay will come up with, who's like the head of who created it. And so it's just really, it's like a nice community.
I'm glad that WACA has given that space, at least for our students, our student athletes, our women of color athletes, and glad that that's been a good experience for you. So the last thing I wanted pick on a little bit or learn a little bit more about his Black Gen Capital. I had a student in my office earlier today who's a sophomore who's involved with Black Gen Capital too. And he was just talking about what an amazing organization it is. And it's kind of changed his whole plans and framework. So when did you get involved? How did you get involved?
Yeah, so I joined my junior year.
Okay.
There's like an interview process and everything. It started by 2 students on this campus, Sheck and Erm. I mean, it's a great club and organization, especially for people like me who are coming from like more of an arts communications background, and you're not really sure, or it's more unfamiliar to you, the whole finance world. And to me, it's like another language. And then once you learn it, just like everybody else, like you're off and running with it. But I think first getting comfortable and joining a club like this really helped me, especially before going into a career in finance now. Yeah, it was started because there was like a lack of, representation of people of color within finance. And so they saw that as an opportunity to start something at Cornell, and really help students like get jobs and become financially literate. Like, I think there's just so many long-term benefits in what they're doing here at Cornell to help students, because already it's, a PWI. So to be around people who look like you, and then also in an organization where people look like you, and you're also like studying and advancing within finance and learning more every day. It's just awesome. And it's a great opportunity.
Now so you talk about a lot of the community that comes from being a part of the organization and kind of the professional development or the growth there. What, technically speaking, I mean, are you investing? Are you learning how to invest? Are you learning, what are you learning in the kind of hard skills, if you will, of finance in the club?
Yeah, so you're learning about like valuation, different investment strategies. We do like a game, it's like a simulation game on Investopedia where you get like 100K, not real money, and you just kind of have fun and like and like try and invest and see like what's like, how does this look after a week? Or, I mean, you can keep up to it however much you want, but it kind of just like gets your hands dirty without actually taking on the risk of losing any real
without having $100,000 to invest.
Yeah. And so you can use like the knowledge that you're getting in the club to then bring that in. And like after every weekly meeting, we would kind of see like the 3 winners, the 3 losers, and like who's doing the best, who's doing the worst. But it wasn't ever like embarrassing or any feelings hurt. It was more of like a learning, like room to learn.
Now, let me ask you something. When you were talking about this organization, you talked about having interviews for it. So it's a competitive student organization. There are a lot of these at Cornell, and they have proliferated over the years, and there's a lot of debate about them. So you had to apply, you had to be interviewed to get accepted into it's a student organization, get accepted into Black Gen Capital. I'm sure viewers who are students are very familiar with this process, but others may not. So what did you make of that? Like, how did you feel about that process?
Yeah. So personally, I'm a competitive person. So I'm always,
well, you're an athlete, right?
Yeah, I'm always interested in there being a little competition to make things fun. But obviously it's like, I think obviously the goal is to really empower Black people in the world of finance, help them become more financially literate, and create a community where they can do so and like, strive for greatness in it. Like it's a positive thing. We want people to do well. I think making it a club where you have to get accepted into it is kind of one of the realities of it. I don't think it's like necessarily something where they don't want you to succeed. Like, you know what I'm saying? People want people to be in the group that are excited about it. But I just think it's a good way to kind of like read through like, hey, even if you don't come from this major background, like, is this something you're truly passionate about? Like, is this a community you truly want to be in? And I think that the process is good for like that.
Are there any other pieces of advice you'd give a younger version of yourself, a new Cornellian, something along those lines, now that you're sitting where you're sitting and about to graduate?
Yeah. So I have 8 takeaways that I believe are applicable to life. And so basically I got this award. I was named the inaugural recipient of the Tina Sloan Green Award this past year. It was like a couple of months ago. And it was named after the first Black women's head coach at Temple, Tina Sloan Green. And so I was given this award by the IWLCA, or named the award. And I was asked to submit a post for the IWLCA blog. And in my post, at the end of it, I had 8 takeaways applicable to life. So my 8 takeaways, my first one is to focus on the positives in the bigger picture. My second one is to strive to find comfort within discomfort, which kind of stems from like the documentary and stuff we were talking about. The third one is it's not about the individual, it's about the betterment of the team. And that's what I've learned being on Cornell's women's lacrosse team. The fourth one is surround yourself with the right people and mentors. The fifth one is do everything with a purpose. The sixth one is be your authentic self, no matter what environment you're in. The seventh one is do not be afraid to be the only person of color in a white space. And then the eighth one is continue to educate yourself. So those are like the 8 that I live by.
Those are pretty good pieces of advice. We need to like figure out a way on this video to put them on the screen so that people see them and can really process them. But hopefully they hear your words. It's amazing. And I appreciate you taking the moment to share that. This weekend, you're playing Dartmouth. Also, we're celebrating women's 50th anniversary of Title IX and women's athletics at Cornell.
In discussing the 50th anniversary of Title IX and women in varsity athletics at Cornell, and recognizing that there's still more to be done, where do you think we should go from here?
So I alluded to this a little bit earlier. You know, I have seen women's / girls athletics through a different lens as a parent, and I've seen youth sports, and I think so. My moment in the moment is thinking a lot about that, and I do think it needs to start at that level. And I see what I have 2 daughters. I see what my daughters experience in their youth sports experience, and I think that there's reform and equity that needs to be reframed very, very early on. But one of them plays a sport which is very prominent in the Northeast, and yet in this community that we're in here, focuses a lot more on boys' opportunities than girls' opportunities at her age, and this is like middle school age. And so what that means is we're driving a lot, of course, which isn't convenient, but it sends a signal, right, to her about what the value is, despite the fact that there's many opportunities for this sport for boys right here in our own backyard, and just not the same level of competitiveness and emphasis and resources and commitment to providing that same opportunity for girls at that age. So I think that starts there, but I think that has continued and perpetuated, frankly, all the way through the varsity level and frankly through the professional level too, right? You see this play out whether you're talking about March Madness, or whether you're talking about any other platform in Division I or in the professional, where the marketing dollars, the revenue, all tends to still lean onto the men's side of athletics and of sport. So there's all kinds of imbalance like that, and I think that as institutions of higher education, it's really going to be our responsibility to push that forward, right, as much as we can. Again, I think it starts before us, but certainly we have to take that up as student athletes come to places like Cornell, other Division I institutions, and really continue to advance and make sure the resource balance is in check.
Thank you for sharing that. I think there's like one way of thinking about it with like gender and like men and women and the difference there, like everything you touched on. And then another way that I think about it is with like race, and especially with me and my experience, like I was talking about earlier, and on the topic of like, oh, we have a long way to go. Like we're celebrating this milestone, but like where like our areas for improvement still. And I think when we talk about like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's one thing to say that a team is diverse, and then another thing to say that like there's people on the team who are like executing this mentality or this mindset of making it more inclusive for people. And I think that really comes to like the culture, like speaking to the culture of the team, and how you adopt this like diversity into the culture. Is it just one person, or is it a bunch of people who are making like that environment a place that it's inclusive for a bunch of different people? So I think for me, like, I'm very grateful for my opportunity to play to play lacrosse for Cornell. But I think there's still a long way to go, especially with Cornell women's lacrosse, because it's not, diversity necessarily isn't adopted into the culture. It's been a predominantly white sport for a long time. And change takes time. It takes time for everyone to accept this, and change takes time in general. But I just think it's like making a policy, but really having the people to execute that policy, and that speaks to the culture. So like we have these bricks that we tap, which are hard work, positive attitude, team first. And I love the idea and those principles. But I think the next step is like, all right, we have the bricks and the policy, but what we haven't done is adopted into the culture in Cornell women's lacrosse. And I think this is like the next step to me, like to answer the question, where do we go from here?
The frame you keep using, which is of course the title of your documentary, of where do we go from here? I mean, is the perfect question for these conversations and finding the comfort in the uncomfortable, right? I think, did I get the language right of one of your pillars there?
Finding comfort within discomfort.
We're finding comfort within discomfort, and making sure that we're open to asking that question of where do we go from here and what's next, and recognizing that the next step of answering that could be and maybe uncomfortable, and that's actually how we're going to grow, how we're going to advance as a society, how we're going to create cultures and system changes that make everybody feel a sense of belonging that we care about, certainly at Cornell, but hopefully more broadly in society too. So it's a great response. Yeah. So thank you so much for making the time this afternoon and your very busy schedule to speak with me and to record this for our viewing audiences. You obviously have done amazing things here at Cornell. You're just a couple weeks away from graduation. I want to thank you for the impact you've had on this institution and certainly on so many younger Cornellians and Cornellians who haven't even shown up yet that will feel the weight of your energy and your work that you've put into this place to make it better. So thank you very sincerely for that. You've really made a difference.
Thank you for having me. This is great. I always love a great conversation.
Absolutely. And good luck. Good luck this weekend against Dartmouth, and good luck with the last couple of weeks of classes and graduation. To everybody who's been viewing today, thank you for tuning in to Real Talk with Ryan. I hope you enjoyed our spectacular guest, Ashleigh Gundy, and have learned a lot through this conversation and just enjoyed having this real conversation with both of us today. I think we'll sign off for now and wish you all the best. We may not be back before summer, so if not, we'll either catch you over the summer or next fall in the next school year. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.